It's not very upright, but who cares? It's a little sideways. But it sure does smell good, don't it? This is hyacinth. And hyacinth, I would like you to meet my friends. My friends, I would like you to meet hyacinth. Hyacinth is one of the newest additions to the Voodoo Garden. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Garden of Voo. My name is Ray. I am the host of this ever-growing nonsense I lovingly call the Garden of Voo. This is my new friend, Hyacinth. Hyacinth grew from a bulb that I just not too long ago. Oh, sometimes you just gotta stop and smell the flowers. Oh, speaking of, hey you, come on over here. Sniff my flower. What do you think? Sniff, and no, you don't like flowers? Oh, well, you're kind of sniffing flowers. Yeah, pretty good, huh? How you doing? Yeah, you gotta be in the program. Of course you do. This is little R. This is little R's butt. Go check for mice and stuff. Oh, that smells good. That really does smell good. Sometimes you just gotta stop and smell the flowers. Boy, it's been weird the last couple weeks, hasn't it? Yeah, I'm not gonna go into current events and stuff, but you know what's going on. People are going crazy. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And yet, we just have to sit back sometimes, relax, smell the flowers, enjoy things. And I am enjoying something. This is another new member. I just found this in the garden section of Walmart. And you know what's kind of weird? And just going back to what's going on today, you know, everybody's going nuts and stocking up on toilet paper and macaroni and spaghetti sauce and things. They're going nuts at the grocery stores. Whereas I went to my local Walmart and I made a beeline to the plant section. There was nobody there. Nobody stocking up on plants, and that suited me just fine. I had the music going in the background, you know, the overhead music, and I'm sniffing the plants and talking to them and picking them up and examining them, and we're having a really good time. And this one decided to come home with me. This little booger is an arrowhead plant. Yep, it's an arrowhead plant. Remember, remember, it was, what was it, a year or 2 years ago? I had a huge specimen of an arrowhead plant. That's right, I did have one. And because when I got this, I thought, didn't I used to have one? Yeah, I actually have a bad memory. So when I'm asking you questions, I really don't remember. It's not that I'm just trying to put on an act or anything. I don't remember a lot of things. I don't know what it is about my brain, but it doesn't work that way. This one is going to eventually be a big one. So I'm going to just put this here. I'm going to repot it later. I have a really cool program for you today. I want to show you something going on over here. My bee finger. We have a Zizi over here, and I have an avocado thing going on, and we got to say goodbye to an old friend over here. So that's our program for today. Grab a cup of coffee, grab the kids, grab a chair. Well, actually, you don't need a chair. You can sit on the floor with Rascal. Come on over here, and let's get started, shall we? Now this is something a little bit different. I think the last holiday cactus I had pinkish flowers, whereas this one has orange, kind of a reddish orange. And remember, last time you were here, we had the little buds of the flowers just starting to come out. Well, now the flowers have all the way come out, and I want to just show you this up close and personal. So I'm going to actually bring the plant over and tilt it up and show you how I make seed pods on my holiday cactus. So if you have one or you get one, and I recommend, if you've never had one, get one. They are the easiest, funnest thing to grow, because look at this one. It's actually starting to really grow. They respond very well to minimal care. I'm going to show you how I take care of mine. Maybe this will help you with yours. Let's tilt it up this way. They will put out profuse amount of flowers, and this is what the flower looks like right here. Actually, you know what? I don't have to do that. I can sacrifice a flower for you because you're my friend. At the tip of the leaves, they will put out a flower, and this is what it looks like. Nice and up close. It's going to have some white dots on the end of this. Isn't that cool? Yeah, kind of like guitar strings. And actually like filaments. Yeah, little filaments. And there's pollen on those. What you do is right underneath, see that little pinkish part? You don't rip the flower off the plant because, you know, you're going to kill it. Like I just did. Get some pollen on your fingers, rub it back and forth like that, and make sure you get it on that pink thing. Then you're pollinating a plant. Yes, you are. And you do that from one flower to the next flower to the next flower. And keep doing that with the same finger. And that way you're mixing up the pollen from one flower to the next. In case one flower can't pollinate itself, it can pollinate another one. Just keep going back and forth like that. Eventually, what will happen is the flowers are going to die. And when the flowers die, they will form, this one fell off a plant, or I ripped it off the plant. They will form a pod. Yep, remember I mentioned that. And inside this pod will be seeds. Yes, they will. You let these ripen up on the plant. Eventually, they will shrink up and shrivel up, and I believe they may dry. I don't know. I've never actually had them go that far yet. So they may dry up, may die, and then you harvest them and you can plant it from seed. But you really don't need to do that. That's just mainly a fun little side item to do with these kind of cactus. They're a succulent. I don't really think of them as a cactus because I think of cactus as things with thorns that are going to hurt me. Yeah, these don't. These are very, very mild, mellow plants. They look like they could hurt you, but they can't. Most people will just take a cutting, shove it in soil, and that's how you propagate them. So you don't really need the seeds, but it's kind of fun because it's something that most people don't think that these plants can do. As far as care for these, I put them in rich, well-drained soil, just like every other plant that I ever have. But the well-drained is a must. You got to make sure it's well-drained because they do not like their roots to be setting in wet soil all the time. A good way to do this is if you can get some cocoa peat or coir, you mix it about a third coir with 3/4 potting soil. Or if you don't have coir, you can take a big heaping handful, well actually let's see, about 1/4 vermiculite or perlite, they're interchangeable, 1/4 that and 3/4 potting soil. Mix it all really well, transplant your plant into this. Don't plant it too awful much deeper than the original plant, but maybe just a tiny bit. Water it well, let the soil totally dry out. That's the key. Then water it again, let it dry out. Do not leave them moist. And just because the top feels dry does not mean the bottom is dry. So when you first transplant it into there, before you water it, feel the weight. And then water it, and then it'll of course get heavier. Then when it's light again, like it was before, and it feels dry on top, give it another watering. That's what cactus like most, the cycle of wet and bone dry. Come on over, my little Zizi. This is called a Zizi plant. I've shown this before in the VoodooGarden, and you haven't seen it for a while. We had it here, I believe, last year, and then I moved it upstairs because it was just not doing anything. They grow, then they stop. They grow, then they stop. It had gone through a stop cycle. I needed room in the VoodooGarden, so I put it upstairs in a semi-sunny window. It got a little bit of morning light, but that's it. And I let it rest for a while, and this is how Zizi plants grow. They'll put out a stalk, and it'll be a little bit bulbous at the base. I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, it's just a tiny bit bulbous at the base, and then it's a leaf stalk. They don't grow up a leaf stalk, then another leaf stalk like a tree or anything. They just put one stalk, they rest, and then when it's time, look at this. They'll put out these. They start out looking like a little bulb looking thing, and then this whole cluster of leaves will start getting taller and taller. I'm going to spin it around so you can see the progression on this. They are actually fascinating plants. It'll start opening up, almost looks like a pineapple in a way, and then it does this. It opens up, beautiful lime green leaves that fan out, gather up the sun, and then it'll rest again. After a cluster of them come out, then it'll do it again. The old ones will get darker green. Sometimes they may get old and die. If they do, snip them off almost at ground level, but not all the way. This one prefers, for me, okay, there's a lot of different people that grow them different ways. For me, the wet, dry cycle seems to go well with them. Don't over fertilize. They can go in low light, bright light. They really don't care. That's what's so fun about a Zizi plant. They are so accepting of whatever kind of environment you want to give them. Yeah. And an update on another very agreeable plant, the spider plant. These were the little spider babies that I planted in a pot. Remember, I just did a few of them in a pot. I grew a really huge one years ago, and I showed a picture on that on a recent VoodooGarden program. Then I took a couple babies. I grew small. I did the series on growing small. Now I'm going back the other way. Remember I mentioned last time that I'm going to grow big again. These, look at the color on these. They're getting very healthy because I transplanted them into some new soil, and they're starting to put out the runners. I'm going to go ahead and let them do the runners because normally you can take off the runners and it'll force the plant to grow a little bit better. This plant seems to be doing both at the same time, and that's a good thing. They really do appreciate mild fertilizer, not a strong fertilizer. I do the compost tea. And the wet dry cycle, like the other two plants that I showed, they love that. Medium to medium bright light, wet dry, and you are going to have a really good time with your spider plants. Very, very low maintenance. I find that most folks that have problems with their plants tend to overlove them. Yes, we hug them until they die. We give them a lot of water, we give them fertilizer, we give them this, we give them that. They really don't need that because that's not what they get in nature. Nature does not coddle her babies. So that's the key, I think, to my success in the Voodoo Garden. I try to simulate nature with the wet-dry cycle and also not to overfeed them. One thing that is a good idea when you have a spider plant is to get some sort of pedestal to put it on. I found this planter at a local thrift store for just a few bucks. Yeah, and it was ugly. Oh, it was butt ugly. It was all brown and white and moldy and stuff. I just sanded it off a little bit, hit it with a coat of paint, and I tossed this in it. No, this isn't planted in it. It's just setting inside of there, and it makes a great planter. Wonderful for a spider plant. You know, a little can of paint and a paintbrush is your best friend for making old stuff look new and keeping your pots looking nice. Even these pots that I have right here in the Voodoo Garden, they're getting faded, they're getting old. If I wanted to, which I don't want to, if I wanted to keep them looking nice, what I do is I'd wash them out when I transplant a plant out of that, when I take a plant out of there, just wash them off, dry them, take a can of inexpensive spray paint and hit them with that, and it gives it a whole new look. You could have a whole new life on your pot when you, if you do that. I used to do that back when I had a little tiny store named Gumby's Garden. I'd get old pots at the thrift stores, and I'd hit them with spray paint. I'd take a cottage cheese container, I'd hit it with spray paint, put a plant in there, and make a few bucks. That's what I did. Yeah, I'd take cuttings and put them into little tiny containers. I was using my creativity because I couldn't compete with the big plant stores. I just had a little teeny tiny storefront, and I was taking cuttings from bigger plants, making littler plants, and selling them at the flea market, and that's how I made some money. You know, there is something going on with an avocado back here, and I really did not expect it. I want to show you that, but I also want to show you the end of a plant that we have over here because I need the space. I'm expecting some plants in relatively soon, and I need the space over here. So I'm going to swing you over, and we're going to say goodbye to a good and delicious friend. Let's walk right over into the jungle, shall we? Right behind the fern and the China doll is the Prax cherry. You've seen this many, many times, and this will probably be the last time we show it on here. It grew, it flowered, it grew some more, it flowered some more, it produced, remember, all the fruits I was showing on this, and through all these weeks, I think it's been over a month now, it's still producing like a champ. It's still putting out fruit. It's got a few flowers over on the right, but I want to show you what's going on with the stems and the leaves. This will happen at times with your indoor plants because we have limited space for the roots. Look at this. Yep, nutrient deficiency, and that's because right down here, I just have it growing in potting soil. Potting soil is something that you're going to purchase in a bag, and it looks really good, and it seems kind of rich. But the thing is that they generally just put inexpensive artificial fertilizer in there that's not meant to last for very long. And tomatoes are nutrient hogs. They require a lot of feed for what they put out. When we have them in the garden, we have compost, we have sunshine, rain. Rain brings in nutrients, dead leaves and things. So it helps feed the plant, and the plant has more root space, whereas in here we don't. So that's what's happening to the Prax cherry. And that's okay. I could recharge it by adding a lot of compost on the top or compost tea, but I don't want to do that. I have little cuttings from this. I took cuttings from this plant when it was nice and healthy, and I have them rooted for the plants that I want to grow outside this next year for the Prax cherries, and also to save seeds for the little shop of seeds. But this one right here is pretty much done. There's a few more cherry tomatoes on here, and I've been taking off about 4 to 6 every day for my lunch. And so I want to thank this little plant, and it is little. For the type of plant this is actually a very small plant. And I'm going to be growing this outdoors this next year. So if you want to see the progress on what this plant can do outside with no restrictions, tune into the Praxis 55712 channel. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. You got to come in for a sniff. I know some folks don't like hyacinth. They think that they're too strong of a smell. But for those of you who like it, take a sniff. Yep. They smell so good. This one is not going outside. I could plant them outside, and yet this was just the $1 bulb that I found at Walmart. They were just $1. I put it in a pot, it grew, and now what I'm going to do is, as soon as I get rid of some plants in here, I might put this into a larger pot, let it grow indoors, and it will form more bulbs in the soil as soon as this flower is done. The leaves will start putting energy back into the roots. The roots will form bulbs. I'll take the bulbs out around autumn, save them throughout the winter, then plant them outside. So from one little $1 bulb that I got, I could probably get like 6 to 12 bulbs by next spring. Ray the frugal guy. But that's not what we came over here for. We came over here for avocado. I had to back up a little bit. As you remember, the avocado tree was one thing that I've always had a problem growing, and yet for some reason I figured out the secret. It's like the holy grail of avocados. So many people all over the world have had problems growing avocados. You grow them, they grow really cool until they're about 1 foot to 2 foot tall. Then the leaves start drying out. The leaves turn yellow. The plant dies. What are you doing wrong? Well, I found out, now there's part of it, and I've shown this before, but for the new people, I want to show this. This is another branch with another cluster of leaves. And then the third one, you see how it has 3 branches in here. Yep. Pardon my shaking hand. I'm going to get up on a stool, and we're going to go up to the top one. This is the top one, and they're very healthy. Now I want to show you something that I didn't expect. It started doing this. I did not prune this back. Normally when you pinch off a growing tip, you'll get more growing tips. I did not do anything. And this is something that I've never experienced because I've never grown an avocado to this age, to this height. All of a sudden, it's putting out new branches all the way around, and it's still growing. It's not stopping in the middle. The middle's still growing, so I think it's just going to continue doing that. It's a new development for an avocado tree, and I think that's a natural thing for it to start forming that. I had this happen with a cocoa tree, a cacao tree. I grew from, chocolate, cocoa. Yep, I grew those in the Voodoo Garden, and that's what happened when they got to be such an age as well. So I believe this is going to be the same exact thing. The secret that I found for this plant, and they will always, they'll get a little bit of lightness around the edges, maybe a little bit of brown, but to keep from doing that, make sure their soil is just a little bit acidic. Alkaline soil, and sometimes your water from your faucet may be alkaline. My well is incredibly alkaline water, so I have to run it through a distiller, and that takes out the calcium. I think it's calcium carbonate or something weird like that that makes it alkaline, and it brings the pH down, and that was my secret to keeping my plant alive. And also, don't overwater. Avocados hate to keep their roots moist too awful long. They like to dry out just a little bit. Now right behind the avocado, as an added bonus, this is the queen of the night, night blooming cereus. I think that's how it's pronounced. She put out some big, beautiful flowers on her leaves. Now they'll do that every now and then, but the show is only for one night and one night only, and it happens at night. When the lights go out, the flowers come out, and I believe they're pollinated by bats or some type of moth that only comes out at night. Yeah, that is fascinating. Somebody sent me a little clipping, and I grew this into a full-grown plant, but every now and then, for some reason, it'll put out a weird stem, and that's what it's been doing recently. Looks like a snake, and it has little roots. So normally, if this one was crawling on the ground, I believe the roots would root in the dirt and make it get stronger and stronger. This is something else, isn't it? Yeah, it's got a few of them. It's got one back there, right over here underneath the light. It's got a couple more over there. Fascinating plant. I just can't get over how strange nature can be sometimes. You're just cruising along, singing a song, thinking you know it all, and then nature comes along and says, hey, look what I can do. It is something else, isn't it? Every day is fascinating here in the Garden of Voo. And one last little thing, and it isn't really a thing yet, but I got a feeling that this thing is going to come right back to life. It was last year in the early spring, somebody sent me what was called an air potato. Air potato. I'll just put it right here. Air potato. I never heard of such a thing. Air potato. What is that thing? I researched it. Talked about it. I grew it. It was fascinating. It's this vine that grows down south. It's considered a weed, and people don't like it down south. And up north here, in Iowa, it's not an everyday thing, because if it gets too cold and freezes, these things will die and they won't continue on. But down south, it stays warm enough to where these things can grow all the time. It's called an air potato. She sent me this little teeny tiny. It looked like an old seed potato that had a little tiny start coming out of it, and I thought, oh, how cute is that? So I put it in dirt, and boy, did things happen. It was like Little Shop of Horrors, where that big plant comes out, you know, the little big plant comes out. Well, this thing put out a big vine, and big leaves came out. Then it started growing this way, started growing that way, it started going all over the Voodoo Garden, and I was hooking it all over the ceiling, was going around. Remember those big leaves? Yeah, that was this. Turns out my alkaline water was slowly killing it, so it couldn't continue, and eventually it died off. Well, when I went to go dump the soil out, to my surprise, I didn't get any air potatoes or flowers on there, so I thought it was the end of it. When I dumped the soil out, there was this big, fat, stinking root-looking thing. It looks like some kind of alien. Well, I kept that in the Voodoo Garden for the longest time. I just set it off to the side, ignored it, and just recently, I think it was last week, I was looking at it and wondering what I'm going to do with this. Should I just throw it away or what? I looked at it really close with my magnifying glass, and there was a little tiny start, a little green thing starting to come out of it. So it wasn't dead, it was just dormant. So I shoved it in here. So yeah, air potato, hopefully, keep our fingers crossed, will make a second appearance here in the Voodoo Garden. And what that's going to do, if it grows the way that it did last year, and now that I know how to take care of it, I think we're going to fill the ceiling with leaves. Isn't it going to be beautiful? Yep. The Voodoo Garden is going to get more and more tropical until eventually these plants are just going to eat me alive. That's not pretty. Okay, well, anyway, I got to get going. I got to get outside and turn some compost. I got compost going outside. Ah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Nothing makes me feel better than turning compost or being around plants. So now that I can do both in one day, it's a very, very good day over here. By the way, if you have any questions concerning your indoor plants, post it in the comment section below. One of us here, me, the plants, the air potato rascal, somebody will get back to you and answer your questions, because I want to do the very best I can to give you the very best answers I can to help you grow your garden to the very best of your ability. I don't know everything, but I do know enough to where I can offer just a little bit of advice to help you along your way. And if I don't know the answer, I encourage my viewers to read the comments, and if they know an answer, post it in the comment section below, because it takes more than just one person to help everybody out. I can't do it all myself. I rely on you quite a bit too. So if you do have answers to people's questions, feel free to post your answers in the comment section. I do appreciate that. Okay, I got to get this back underneath the light to see if it's going to sprout by the next time you join us in 2 weeks. But until then, this is Ray, and it is Fun Little Friends. We're out of here.